we're meeting again the second time this month. This is the fourth Saturday, and time for some stories. We're the storytellers. Most of us here know about us, so I will do a very quick recap about the storytellers. We're a Pune-based group of people who love to tell stories. We meet twice a month. Generally, when we were not on lockdown, we would meet on Sundays. But now, under the lockdown situation, we're meeting on Saturdays, the second and the fourth Saturday. We are also on WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook, so you could connect with us there also. Um, we tell stories in the English language. They could be written in any other language, but they need to be told in the English language. They need to be told, not read. The telling time is about 10 minutes. You could go a minute or two beyond, but try and keep it within the 10 minutes. The story that you tell should be either a published story, a folk tale, or mythology. And yeah, so that's about it for the rules that we follow. And and also, we're one of the very few people in India, I don't know about the world, but in India, that allows new people to experiment with stories, to come use our platform and tell stories. So that is something that we are unique for. And today we have three storytellers who are not in Pune. So let's start with Minket, who is right now in Nepal, though she is from Darjeeling. So Minket, if you could unmute yourself, we all will be muted, but if you unmute yourself and begin your story, introduce your story and then tell us about it.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me to have this session with all of you. I'm from an indigenous tribe called Lepchas. So this story that I'm talking about, I'm going to narrate is what my ancestors have been narrating for ages unknown. And this has not been documented or even written down. And this story talks about the geography, the environmental history of the place called Darjeeling, Sikkim. And it has the story of these two rivers. And I am going to do the screen sharing. I know it's more of telling, but I think since my story is about the place that I come from, it is very important to show you the places where these stories occurred. So that thereby in a few minutes, I'll be sharing the screen. But yes, so this is about the time when I come from this white mountain called Mountain Kanchenjunga, the mountain which you have in a 100 rupee note. And that particular mountain is the third highest in the world. And we come from the folklore that our clans were born out of the snowball of Mount Kanchenjunga. So Mighty Mountain is very sacred to us. So it's about those times when this mountain Kanchenjunga was as small as a musketeer's tooth. And as you know, this eastern Himalaya is growing and it's still a new mountain, 4 mountains. So we have a lot of stories about earthquake, a lot of stories about landslides. So this is one story which also talks about how environmental history is important in our folklore. So yeah, I will try to share the screen as I speak, but if the host can help me, because I have to share the screen because somebody has disabled. Shaheen, can you make it? Yeah,
Can
great,
you
great.
hear it
Thank
now?
you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. So yeah, so I'm coming from this white mountain where all the magical things used to happen. We call it the Kanchenjunga. It is Kanchenjunga. People mostly say it or Kanchenjunga, but we call it as Kanchenjunga. So these high mountains were these small, as small as a musketeer's tooth, and everyone, right from the mountains to the birds, to the butterflies, to the white, to the trees, they all used to be thankful to one another. So whenever there used to be a rainfall that used to happen in these mighty mountains, the trees used to say thank you because of the water, they could actually give birth to the flowers on their branches. And the Mother Earth used to say thank you to the trees because it was of these flowers which used to fall on the lap of these earth that they used to get a lot of beautiful other flowers and nourishment. And the rivers used to say thank you to Mother Earth because it was the very shape of the earth that defined the rivers. So it was these times when everyone was grateful, everyone was happy, everyone was thankful. And above all, everyone knew that they were interdependent. They knew that it's because of me that you are there, and it's because of you she is there, and it's because of her someone else is there. So everyone was interdependent. And I'm going to show you these two beautiful trees. One is Nepalensis alnus, which is one of, in Nepali we call it utis. It usually grows in the areas when there's a landslide. And another one is rhododendron. This beautiful flower is a medicinal plant for us. So these flowers and trees, they used to be friends with one another, and they used to be together in harmony because they knew that because of this interdependence, the Mother Earth was existing. And as time passed by, our creator, which is called the Idbu Debu Room, does not have a gender, is neither a man or a woman. Idbu Debu Room decided that Mother Earth needs two human beings, and these human beings need to learn how to live in harmony, how to coexist with nature, and how to make sure that they are grateful for what they have. So Idbu Debu Room sent two human beings. One was Rangit, another one was Rangnu. Rangit was a male and Rangnu was a girl. So together they landed in the laps of Mountain Kanchenjunga, and then they were there in the mountains living happily with harmoniously with trees and birds and other entities. So the picture that you see is from Darjeeling. This is Mount Kanchenjunga, and this side is Sikkim, and this side is Darjeeling. So as time passed by, these two beautiful human beings started growing in these mighty mountains and forests. But as they were growing up, they started falling in love with one another. They started falling in love so badly that they forgot that there was a rule of the jungle. There was a rule of nature that they had to thank, that they had to be grateful for what they got. And they were so madly in love with one another that the jungle felt that this love between these two human beings are dangerous. It is not supposed to grow because the love is very selfish. It's only between the two of them, not for the forest, not for the rivers, not for the mountains, but just the two of them. So the whole mountains started actually conspiring either on killing them or separating them. So while this happened, there was these two birds. One was the blue-throated barbet, and another one was kingfisher. They are very good friends with these two human beings. They actually landed up telling them that the whole jungle is conspiring against them. Hearing that, Rongit, the male, was the ferocious one, the angry one, very, very impulsive. Said, I'm going to go and kill all these people, kill all these entities of the jungle. How dare they think that they are going to kill us? They're going to separate us. We are the God of the children. How can they kill us? I'm going to go and fight. And that's when he said that, Rongnu was a calm, cool one. The girl said, have you ever seen your size? Have you seen how small you are? Do you think you can kill the whole jungle with your anger? Think about it. And that is a time when Rangit thought for a very long time and said, okay, let's flee away from here. Let's flee away from these mountains and go towards the plains. And as a man would usually do, said, don't worry, my darling, I am there for you. I am going to take care of you. And as he said that, she was like, how? And he said, we are going to become two rivers. You come from North Sikkim, and I will come from West Sikkim. And together we will flow as rivers and meet in a place called Panzok. Now, when she said that, she heard this, it was like, oh, not a bad idea. But how are we going to go when we become water? We don't have a shape. We will be just disappearing if we don't have somebody to follow. And Rangit, as a man would do, would say, don't worry, my darling, I am there. I am going to make sure that we reach there at Pesok on time. And she said, how? And he was like, you follow the bird and you follow the snake and I will follow the bird. I was like, that's a wonderful idea, Rangyu said. And so together, as they were about to snap the finger and become these two beautiful rivers, Rongit said, "Hey, listen, but please don't be late. Make sure you come on time and I meet you in a place called Pesok." Now, this is the place where the rivers decided to meet. This is the place. And this is Mount Kanchenjunga. I am from Darjeeling side and this is Sikkim. And she was like, okay, I will meet. And the boy, Rongit, followed this bird. This bird was called Himalayan Munal. It's a beautiful bird with lots of colors, and it's one of the national birds of Nepal. And said, now this bird was so attractive, So it followed, Rongit was following, and sometimes it would sit on one branch, some other bird would flirt with this bird, sometimes they would come and do the foraging, or sometimes have a seed, so on and so forth. And finally, they reached. Whom do you think? Okay, I will not ask this one, but I wanted to tell you. Everyone tells me that it is the guy who reaches first. But in this story, it is the girl who reaches first. And as she is sitting here in the confluence, and Rongit comes following the bird. And Rongit, as soon as he sees this girl come reach earlier than him, he gets so angry. And he gets so angry, his male ego gets hurt so badly and says, Teesta. In our language, Teesta means when did you arrive? And that's how the river Teesta got its name, Teesta. Teesta. And when he said Teesta, the girl said, hey, listen, I want to tell you what happened. And he was not willing to listen at all. And he was so angry because he felt that he was the one giving all the solutions, and how come she reaches before me? And said, you are a characterless woman. You have no dignity. I'm sure you flirted around with somebody, you went somewhere, found some new friend, and then you made a shortcut, and just to prove that you're better than me, you came earlier than me. Rangit was like, no, just listen to me. But Rangit would not listen. Rangit got so angry that he moved. He was a river, remember? He pulled the boulders, he pulled the sand, he pulled the trees, he pulled the utis, the tree that I was talking about, the rhododendron, everything. And he created a big deluge in these mountains. History has it that the mountain did face this big flood, and there was a lot of deluge. And when that happened, the animals, the birds, the trees, the medicinal plants, everything was submerged under the water. And Rangit was not listening to anyone. His friends, like the blue-throated barbet, like the kingfisher, died in that flood. But Rangit would not listen. He was so angry. And then these people, there's all these young animals and birds got really worried, and then it reached on this mountain as I move around this cursor. This mountain is called Tendong, and this Tendong, after everything was full of flood, all these young animals and birds reached on top of it and called Itbudeburum and said, please, Itbudeburum, save us from the anger of this river. He is so angry. He is so blinded by his anger. He's not even willing to listen to us. That is the time when this bird, called the hill partridge, came all the way from Mount Kanchenjunga and sat on top of this mountain top and said, my dear friends, what I can suggest is you offer millet to this river, and you make sure that you tell Rangit to go and meet Rangnu and apologize. And with the command of Idbudeburum, the people, the birds, magical creatures like Yeti, offered the millet and offered the millet to the river. And there is another story which says, while they were offering the river, offering the millet, that millet fell on the chest of this hill partridge. And that is one of the reasons why they still have dots on their chest. And if you really rub the chest, you smell of millet. It's pungent smell. So what happened was when they actually offered, Rangit was out of that shock, out of that whole idea of anger. And he realized the kind of mistake that he had done. And then he started calming down. He started calming down and he started to go and meet Rangnu. And because of that, a lot of animals and birds were alive because of that. That's why our community still prays to this mountain. It is called Tendong Larung Fat. On 8th of August, we go to this mountain and pray Mount Kanchenjunga and also for saving us from the deluge. And as Rangit goes to this confluence and meets a river Rangnu, River Rangit says, I'm sorry, my dear, because of my ego, because of my anger, because of my patriarchal thought, I thought that I am right. And Ramnu just listened to him for a very long time and had a faint smile on her face and said, only and only if you would have listened to what I had to say. You met a friend, such a beautiful bird, which is Munal, and all of a sudden you trusted that friend. And in a flicker of a second, you lost, you forgot all our friendship, you forgot the bond we had, and because I'm a woman, you felt that I am a cheater. So, in order to keep alive, I will not disrespect your male ego. So, I will always move one more round. There is a river which crosses here, there is island type here. I will make one more round to these mountains and join you again to make sure that I did not hurt your ego because I came early. But remember, I was following a snake and you were following a bird. The snake did not stop anywhere. But your bird, even though they cannot fly for a very long time. Sometimes it would sit on one branch, sit on another, and you also got so, mesmerized with that you forgot that you had got late. However, I will also remind you of the anger. So you, as River Rangit, will always be the muddy and gray, and I, River Rangnu, will be the cool and calm to remind people what anger can do to the mountains. So till now also, if you go towards the Rangit side, the Rangit is like almost quivering because it followed the bird. The bird never follows straight, so it's quiver. And because the snake, it was swimming in the river, so it is very straight. So River Rangnu is very, very straight and is always blue and green in color. And then one of the wisest thing that Rangnu said is, I'm not going to fight with you over this trivial matter because I will respect your ego. I will take the shot. I will take this one more round, but I will also remind you of the anger. But both of us have become rivers, and as rivers, we have to provide water to people downstream. We have to provide water to fish, and together we will flow as River Teesta. And I'm sorry, my map is a little murky, but this is the trail of the River Teesta. So it is born here in the mountains of eastern Himalayas. It goes towards Siliguri and actually crosses Bangladesh to reach Bay of Bengal. So this is how the River Teesta, the Teesta became Teesta. And I hope you like the story. Thank you. Thank you.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Minket.
Thank you.
Let's all think about this story and just stay with this story for about 30 seconds. It was an amazing story. So let's just let it sink in. I'd request you to close your eyes and draw on the images that this story brought out. Yes, and for our next story, we will be traveling to a person in America who will be taking us to Africa to tell this to narrate the story. I would like to invite Divya.
Shall I begin? Can you hear me clearly? This is a story of Oyot and Emyong. Oyot was a mouse, while Emyong was a bat. And to onlookers, the mouse and the bat seemed to be the best of friends. But that was not the case. Even though the mouse thought the bat was his best friend, the bat secretly envied and hated the mouse. He was plotting for his downfall. They used to do a lot of things together. So they used to hunt together and they used to take turns cooking for each other. The bat was an excellent cook. So one day, both of them were sitting and enjoying soup when the mouse said, Emyong, this soup is so amazing. It's so flavorful. How do you do this? The bat found his chance. He told the mouse, you come tomorrow to my house. You want to learn, right? You come tomorrow to my house and I will show you how it's prepared. The mouse was this happy-go-lucky, carefree little being. And so he didn't think much about it. And next day he went to the bat's house. The bat was ready with a brewing pot. First thing he did was he filled the brewing pot with water. And he started boiling the water. He told the mouse this is a very important step to make sure that the water is boiling hot. When the water started boiling, he told the mouse, can you fetch me some mushrooms from outside? The mouse very happily went out to get mushrooms, and that's when the bat carefully removed some of the hot water and poured in some cold water. So now the pot was lukewarm. But this is something the mouse did not know. The mouse came back innocently with a mushroom, happily handed it to the bat. Emyong took the mushroom and jumped into the water. The mouse looked with rapt attention. The bat said this step is extremely important because it enhances the flavors of the water. The mouse said, oh. And then the bat sent the mouse to go and get a white pebble for him. When the mouse was out, he jumped out of the water, added his secret ingredients quietly. And when the mouse was back, he plonked in the white pebble and he continued cooking the regular meal. And when he gave the soup to the mouse, it was flavorful and wonderful as always. Mouse was very happy. He thought he learned something new today and he can impress his wife. He went home to his wife and he said, today I'm going to cook. He told his wife, go get me the brewing pot. He got the brewing pot and he poured water into it and he said, please go fetch me mushrooms and a pebble. By the time the water started boiling and it was very hot. When the wife came back, he took the mushroom and he jumped into the water. The wife was shocked to see what her husband did as he was squealing in pain.
No, I want a very urgent download letter.
That's when the wife pulled the mouse out. And she saw that her husband has burn marks all over his body. And in spite of having so much pain on his body, the pain of betrayal that he felt in his heart about what his friend had done was more severe. He kept looking for his friend here and there to give him a piece of his mind or ask him why he did what he did. But the bat stirred clear. So to this day, if you look at the mouse, you will see the burn marks on his body. And that's why he's called the striped mouse of Africa. While the bat, he knows that the mouse is awake during the day. So he hides away in caves and trees during the day and comes out only at night. But he stirs clear of the ground and flies throughout the night. So this is a story why a bat flies only during the night.
Lovely. Very nice. Thank you so much, Divya. You bring so much energy into your telling. Thank you so much. So let's again just give Divya's story 30 seconds. Think about the mouse and the bat. Close their eyes for about 30 seconds, please. What images are you able to recollect from this story? Right. I'd just like to remind you all that at the end of the session, we do have a discussion. So we like to discuss each story, and we'd like to encourage you all to stay back and discuss with us so that we know how you have received our stories. Our next story is another folk tale, and it's a Nepali folk tale. We have Rachna, who is again a first time teller for us, the storytellers. Rachna, if you could unmute yourself and tell us the story of Give Us Rice.
Okay, am I audible? Everyone can hear me? Yeah. So this story comes to you from Nepal. You've just met somebody who's staying in Nepal, so I bring you a story from Nepal. Now, this happens in a small village far away from the capital city, Kathmandu. In the village, once upon a time lived a mother, a father, their 5 married sons, and the wives of those sons. So this was a hard-working, industrious family who owned farmland. So every morning at the crack of dawn, the 5 sons and the 5 wives would, go to the fields. They would plow the land. They would sow the seeds. They would till. They would harvest. And with their hard work, their barns were full of beautiful, fragrant rice. And they only grew rice. So this hardworking sons and wives would come back every night, and the only problem being that their mother-in-law, a tiny, diminutive woman, was a little stingy, rather very stingy of heart. She couldn't feed her family well. She just couldn't bring herself to do it. So every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, she would give them a sticky, stinky cornflour paste. And this would never fill up anyone's stomach. The wives would go to sleep every night dreaming of the rice in the barn. Their dreams are full of that golden husked rice and the fragrance of the rice, but they would never get any of it. One day what happened is the day was long. They had been to work very early. The work was really hard and their backs hurt, their hands hurt, and everything was hurting. And when they came back home and the wives sat together for dinner, the eldest just looked at the bowl and, she had been having this for the longest among the 5 of them. She just passed it to the 4th one, making up dirty face. The 4th one, who usually, was the most feisty one, also couldn't bear taking it, so she passed it to the 2nd one. Now, the 2nd one was the one who always asked for 2nd helpings and 3rd helpings and ate everyone's leftovers. She too couldn't bear having it, so she passed it to the 3rd one. The 3rd one was the gentle, kind, soft one. So she just couldn't throw the bowl away, but she gently gave it to the 5th one. And the 5th one was the youngest, the newest, and the cleverest. She just plonked the bowl on the ground. And the wives just clutched their heads and, they were like literally moaning with hunger, clutching their stomach and, wondering why couldn't their mother-in-law give them the rice. The eldest one was almost ready for a mutiny. The 4th one was all ready to support her when the 5th one came up with an idea saying that, she had this brilliant plan, and if they could just get together and put it in action, so they could get themselves some rice. So the next night, when the household was sleeping, they kind of tiptoed slowly out of the house. And since they didn't have the keys to the barn, the mother-in-law held everything in her hands. They took out the floorboards of the barn, squeezed their way up into the barn, stole beautiful golden husks of rice, and ran to their field. Now, in the field, they had to dehusk the rice, they had to boil it, but then when they ate it, it was like a dream come true for everyone. So they all ate to their heart's content, and this is what they did the next day, the day after, the week after, and then they got really smart. So they started selling this rice in the market, exchanging it rather for fresh fruit, vegetables, and pulses. Soon they were having a feast every day. Rice, vegetables, dal, fruit. And this went on and on for weeks and months until a year passed. And suddenly, like all good things, this too comes to an end. The barn was empty. There was no rice, not a single grain of rice. And the wives were again all at sea. They started quarreling, squabbling amongst themselves, blaming each other. They were petrified. What if the mother-in-law finds out? The husband scold them. Will they be sent home? They felt ashamed. They felt scared. They didn't know what to do. Then the 3rd one, the gentler wife, the quieter wife, the more calm one, came up with a brilliant idea. They discussed it among themselves and decided it's worth a shot. If they achieved what they were out to do, maybe nobody would learn about it. So next day, they worked hard in the fields. They came back, quietly ate the cornflour paste, and they pretended to sleep. When the household was sleeping and the night was dark and almost midnight, they crawled out of their beds quietly and they went into a corner room where they had kept things ready. They wore their old and shabby clothes and then applied grotesque makeup on each other's faces, make themselves look hideous and scary. And on the way out of that room, they went to the kitchen, picked up some pots and pans to make a racket, and just banged open their mother-in-law's bedroom door. And before the mother-in-law and father-in-law could, catch their senses or open their eyes properly, the five women pretended to be witches, demons, and they started dancing and making these scary faces around their room. And they started laughing, literally like hysterical women, and opening their mouth and running around the space. And the mother-in-law was petrified. She didn't have the courage to peep outside her sheet. The father-in-law didn't have the courage to look out. So all they could hear was, "Give us rice, give us rice. We are hungry. Feed us, give us rice, give us all your rice." And the mother-in-law, with all her stinginess, was still not ready to, open her purse and give them the keys. But the father-in-law gave her a nudge and she had to give the key. She threw the key and asked the demons in a quivering voice to take the rice and go, take the keys and go. And so the demons took the keys, that is the daughter-in-laws. They ran out of the house and the mother-in-law and father-in-law stayed in bed till the sun rose next morning because they didn't have the guts to step out of their room. In the morning, they went to check their barn. And when they opened the barn, they found it bereft of a single grain of rice. There was nothing there. A huge barn filled with barrels of rice, not a single grain left. And the mother-in-law just collapsed in a heap then and there. And before she could say a word or moan or cry, the father-in-law pounced on her literally. He said, "See, this is what you have done. You didn't feed the children. You didn't feed me. We've been starving all our life. You're stingy, small-hearted. At least change now. The demons have taken everything away. And we've not even had a single bite of that yummy rice. So can you please change now?" So she kind of realized that she has been on the wrong side of things for a while. And she decided to turn over to a new leaf. So when her children came back hungry and tired from the farm that day, she happily served them rice and fresh vegetables and fresh fruit and pulses and dal. And now every meal of theirs, whether it was breakfast, lunch, or dinner, was almost like a feast. And they started working much harder in the fields because their stomachs were full. The wives had contented sleep. They didn't dream of that rice in the barn anymore. And they got more prosperous. They got more wealthy. And they lived peacefully. And never again did the wives have to sneak out of their rooms and out of the house and steal the rice from the barn again. So in a way, they lived happily ever after. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was amazing, Rachna. Right. Um, 5 wives, 1 barn. There's so many images to recollect and to keep in our minds. Let's take 30 seconds and keep them nicely in our memory. Right, so before we move on to the next storyteller, I would like to remind you all that we meet here on Zoom every second and fourth Saturday. Our Zoom password and even the login ID are the same. So if you have the one that was for today, please save it to use for another time. Every time we will be using the same login ID and the same password. If I am not wrong, Sunita and Hardika.
Yep.
Right. So our next storyteller for. I'm sorry.
You
said something to me, Shaheen, Hardika here.
No, we have the same login ID and password, right? Every time?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. That's what I wanted to confirm. Our next storyteller is Peter. Peter will be not narrating a folk tale or a traditional tale. He'll be telling a story that has been written, and the author is Suhail Kiwan. I hope I've got that name right. Peter, over to you.
Okay. So this story is Globalization by Suhail Kiwan, and I'm going to tell it in the first person. My name is Abdul. I'm a Palestinian, and I'm from Tel Aviv. I got married, and things were fine for many years, for many, many years. But then suddenly I noticed that I was having a bit of difficulty. Every time I climbed the stairs or did any little bit of energetic work, I'd find myself out of breath and having to sit down. I went to the doctors, and they kind of indicated that my heart muscle had become a little weak. And the only way that this situation would get any better was if I got a heart transplant. And they added a very ominous or else after that. I wasn't very keen on this, but the fact of this heart disease began to affect a lot of my duties around the house, especially my marital duties. And that's when my good wife also decided to say that you better go and get that heart transplant done or else. When I went to the hospital and I put my name down, but after many, many trips, it became apparent that if I was ever going to get that heart transplant done, that I would have to bribe something. And this I didn't want to do. I was determined that I would wait in line till my turn came, and that was my prerogative, and it doesn't matter about the or else, I was going to wait. Now, it so happened that my dad had a cousin who was in Denmark. And cousin got in touch with him and said, why don't you send Abdur over here? I'm sure that we can manage something. The medical system is much better. My good dad sold his remaining plot of land. Then he took the hat around to all the good neighbors and managed to get a sum, and I was sent to far off Denmark. I was there for about 2 weeks when it's just by luck. Some young fellow crashed his car into a snowplow. The brain stopped sending those signals to the rest of his body. And I was lucky enough, since my name was down, I managed to get his heart. And then some strange things started happening. The first thing that happened was that in the hospital itself, his girlfriend began to visit me. She felt that because I had her boyfriends and his name was Felix, I had his heart. She kind of owned this little part inside me, and she began hugging me and kissing me right there in the hospital. And to tell you the truth, I found it quite nice, you know. In the old days, I wouldn't have stood for this kind of behavior. But now with that new heart, I began to respond to her hugs and kisses and embraces. And not only her, all the attendants and the other nurses, I began to, give in at the slightest encouragement. I would give in to all these kinds of things. As a matter of fact, I began to look at that old heart and began to curse it. And, say, how did you manage to keep me away from all these lovely things all these years? And I'm so glad to be rid of you. Now it so happened that my treatment was over and I went back to Tel Aviv. And she continued keeping in contact with me by email. And every once a year, she would send me an anniversary card. And I thought it was a wedding, but I knew they hadn't gotten married. So one day I asked her on the email, what is this anniversary? And she gave a detailed explanation about how it was the first time that made love and it was in a slow drift. And when I started hearing all these things, my heart started beating almost like it was going to jump out of my chest. So this obviously, I was very happy with the situation. And there were some few things that began to change. The first thing is I began to like Danish products, Danish milk products, and Danish meat products, and Danish fish products, and not only that, even the pork products I began to like, even though I've never touched these kind of things. Hello, can you hear me? Is there a problem with the speaker?
It's not very clear, at least for me.
Okay. Can I try from a little closer? Is this any better?
Yeah, this is much better,
There's a
Peter.
tremor in your voice.
There's a? Okay.
It's much better now.
Okay. So do I need to start again?
Can you go back a little bit, please?
Hello? Say again.
Peter, you can start telling the story from the Danish sweets part. So he started enjoying the Danish delicacies.
Okay. So I began to enjoy all these Danish things, foods. And not only that, strangely enough, whenever I saw that one vodka bottle with the two stags on it, my mouth began to water, even though I've never touched this stuff in my life. And I'm quite certain that if I started drinking it, I'd become an alcoholic. Now, some other things started happening. I also began rooting for the Danish football team. And my friends got very angry with this because before that, I would always root for Iran or the Cameroons or the other third world countries. And they kind of looked at this as a very, very, very bad thing. They felt I was kind of giving up on all the liberation struggles of all these countries. They got very angry with me. As a matter of fact, one of them began composing a long poem. You see, they felt that this Danish heart would not last in my body. They used to say, after all, Abdul is an Arab. How can that heart, that Danish heart, satisfy an Arab person? And they felt that I was going to die very soon. But one of them even began composing a long poem which he was going to read out at my funeral, and he wanted it to be ready in time. But strangely enough, it was not me who died, but many of them. And I used to go for their funerals, and somewhere at the back I would be hearing somebody say, "Oh, so and so died, but we were expecting Abdul to die." And this kind of sometimes made me sad, but it made me also feel quite happy that I was surviving all these people who thought that I was going to die first. I decided one thing. I said, let me go and insure this heart. Because, one can never tell. So I went to an insurance agent. I sat down over there. I insured my heart. And while I was sitting there, he pushed some papers across the table and he said, please sign these. We will insure other parts of your body. So without thinking, I insured all the parts of my body, including the family jewels. Now it so happened that a few days after that, I went to the Danish embassy in Tel Aviv. You see, there was the ambassador over there, was one Mr. Anderson. And okay, are you still having problems hearing?
Yes, your voice is breaking, cannot understand a word.
Oh God, okay.
Yeah, but now it's okay. I mean, when you're saying this, it's okay. But when you're narrating, we seem to have a problem.
Goes back again.
Oh, it's breaking on the narration.
Right. Now you're perfectly all right.
Okay, then maybe I need to drop the volume a bit rather than speak louder. Okay. Is this okay? This level of volume okay?
This is amazing. This is clear, crystal clear.
Okay, probably it is speaking too loud, trying to compensate for your not hearing. Okay.
But Peter, we've lost half the story.
Oh God. What do I do? Start again?
No, you can start from the embassy part.
Okay. So I went to the embassy and there was the ambassador, one Mr. Anderson. One Mr. Anderson he was the ambassador over there, but he was also supposed to become the speaker of the Danish parliament. So, without thinking what I was doing, I walked in and began yelling, "My heart will always be with you, Anderson," of course in Arabic. So, the security guard over there thought I was going to commit some terrorist act. He pulled out his gun. First, he jumped on me. He wrestled me to the floor. A whole lot of other guards came. A gun was shoved in my face. They slapped me around like anything. But hearing the commotion, the Anderson guy came out. And when I explained to him that I had a Danish heart and I was supporting him, he was very, very sympathetic. He picked me up, he kissed me on both my cheeks, he even asked to see the scar, and he took his hand and placed it on the scar. And I was allowed to leave that embassy with just a stern warning not to do this kind of thing again. Now, it so happened that as I was returning home, I was quite shaken. So I met with a terrible accident. I crashed the car. And in that accident, everything was practically destroyed, including the family jewels. I was in a coma for nearly 2 weeks. And when I came back to consciousness, those insurance companies, they got very busy. First, they said, hello?
Gone again, voice and tone gone again.
We can
Okay.
hear. We are hearing. It's okay with this thing. Carry on.
Okay. The first thing they did was they sent me to the US, where I got a pair of new legs from a basketball player. As a result, I landed up a good 4 inches taller than I used to be. From there, I was sent to the UK. I got a pair of wrestler's arms, which were nice, but one of them had this naked lady tattooed on it. I was quite happy with that. The kidneys came from somebody in the Philippines. My family jewels came from somebody of the LGBTQ movement in Delhi who had given them up to go join the other camp. My tongue came from a French hooker. My eyes came from a samba dancer in Brazil. And I felt like a new man. Life continued, but I really began to enjoy this new life of mine. There were a few problems, of course. The thing was that to start with, if anyone said Abdul, I had no idea who they were talking about. I would look around searching for who is this Abdul. So they started to call me Felix Abdul. My dad didn't like this at all. Firstly, speaking Arabic with a French hooker's tongue, he said made him feel like vomiting. And very often, I'd catch him muttering in the corner, Felix Abdul. What does he think of himself, Felix Abdul? But life is generally good. As a matter of fact, I wish to tell you, I'm very happy now. Those family jewels that I got worked so well. So from 2 years ago, I had a little son. Now he's running around the house and he calls me Pidaji. And I don't know what that means. Thank you. Globalization by Sohail Kiwan.
Thank you so much, Peter. Always a pleasure to hear the story.
As just a gentle reminder, do not stay with any of the images of that story. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll take Peter's request literally and we will get into the discussion. We had 4 storytellers, and should we discuss their stories in the order that they were told? The first story was Minket's story, and let's discuss her story. It was a story about Teesta. Minket, why did you choose this story to tell us? Hello, Minket, are you there?
Oh yeah, sorry, I unmuted myself.
Right.
I think it was important for me to become a storyteller is just not to tell stories, but also to talk about our communities which we do not address in the mainland India. And another part of it is, I think our people should start telling more stories about the ancestral wisdom, because there is a traditional wisdom which we all communities come from. And in these stories itself, not only about the male and the female ego, but you talk about the millet. Actually, we use millet as our native food. We can get to know from this story, and also to hear the environmental history, because that side is always flood, and a lot of landslides go. So even if now in Sikkim, if you are traveling, you will hear a lot of stories about landslides. So just to know that stories have histories of environment is very important for us to talk about social aspect of humanity. I think that's very important for me to choose this story. And yeah, I've been traveling for the past 2 years telling these stories to children, because most of us associate with people and places but do not associate with river. River is a past memory where you played as a child and have forgotten. So I think through this story, I actually connected with children to kind of delve deeper into the river that they come from. So that is why it was important for me. And this is very dear story of mine, because I just felt like this story also connects us. Most of the time when we say Himalaya, we always think of mountain, but it's the very mountain which melts and become rivers in the mainland India and goes to Bay of Bengal. So that's why I connect with this story, because it's so much deeper.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Yeah. Anybody would like to share about this story? Particulars. Nicholas.
I don't know if they have questions, they can ask me.
Yeah, anybody would like to share some thoughts, some feelings about this story? Personally, I was not surprised that the male had this ego, and to cover up for his um, what he felt was something that was less in him. He blamed the female, and the stronger one always the not the stronger in ability, but the stronger in ego. The one who has a bigger ego is always trying to put down other people, and whether it's male or female. So when he has an ego, he will not like it that somebody else is better than him or her, that is. So that came out very strongly for me in this story.
Yeah, for most of the women, it does.
Anybody else?
I just wanted to say that Minket, Divya, and Rachna's story all had, that underlying ego and selfishness so much in the essence of the whole storytelling. I felt that, but Peter were totally different. So yeah, just I wanted to just share that.
Right.
Uh,
Anybody else
Yeah,
would like to
I'm
share about
Mamta.
Minket? Yeah,
I'm
hi.
Mamta from
Yeah,
Bangalore. Can I?
Mamta. Yeah, sure, Mamta.
Yeah. So I like that story a lot. Like, I was wondering, is there a river by the same name in Kashmir or something like that? Because I had a colleague who was from Kashmir, and he had a daughter, and he had named her name as Teesta. And so this story kind of the names were similar, and I felt it so connected, and I loved hearing this story.
There are many children whose name has become Teesta. So it might be inspired from the river Teesta, because it's a very beautiful river. If you go and visit that river, it's very nice. It's a different thing that because of these dams, a lot of the river has been blocked, and you cannot find the flow anymore. But yeah, it's very calm and soothing. So yeah, I have known many people who've given their daughter's name as Teesta.
Yeah, so is there a river or I don't know, he's from Kashmir. Like, I don't know how he happened to get to name the river. I mean, name his daughter as
Yeah, maybe
Teesta.
he might have visited Sikkim, but I don't know if there is a river called Teesta in.
No,
there is
no,
no.
there isn't.
Yeah.
There isn't, is it? Okay, then
No.
I'll have to check with him again.
He's named it after this Teesta. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful river.
Yeah, and he had, when he had gone to that place, he put a Facebook photo saying Teesta meets Teesta with the river background and the daughter standing in front, and it all looked good and felt good.
That's
Super.
beautiful. That's beautiful.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I just wanted to add one last thing. The point is here, what I'd like to do, and I try to stress on this point is the Rongnu, the girl, actually lets go of the ego and bows down to meet a higher purpose of providing water downstream. So I guess though we get hooked up with the male and the female, ego, the higher purpose of why they came together is what I think I really would like to voice this out, because sometimes we just get lost in the ego part of the story, but the higher purpose of how they kind of compromise and sacrifice to reach the goal of providing water is, I think, as men and women, husband and wife, should also think about it. So yeah, thank you.
Shaheen, I have something.
Yeah, sure.
One thing, the fact that love is selfless, the fact that love was selfish and just between two of them was something that was very different thought for me. Another thing was he was angry, and then Millet calmed him down. So it was somewhat like a hangry kind of hungry anger. So the moment the Millet was there, he calmed down. And those are little things that I really liked about the story.
We have a lot of local drink with millet.
Yeah. I was going to say that it's like a millet beer that probably calmed him down. It is very nice, Chang.
Yeah, that's what we drink whenever we celebrate millet beer.
Oh,
interesting. Very interesting. Good you brought that point up, Divya. We wouldn't know about millet beer, would we?
Yeah, I think I did mention about we pray with the millet, but I didn't mention about the beer part of it. Yes, it is called Tomba. I think even Peter got to drink when he visited Darjeeling. It is called Tomba. It is in a bamboo, container, and we soak the millet in hot water, and it's the juice that we drink. One another one is also Chang, just the white part of it we drink. So you can always come and inquire about the Tomba and Chang next time.
Thank you so much.
One second, Shaheen. Sorry.
Yeah, definitely.
I guess the culture is also very egalitarian. It's not like the men drink and the women can't drink. I'm assuming it's open to everyone. So, which is much more egalitarian than what we have in the cities or some, it's like fair, much more fair.
That's why I stress on the fact that our God does not have a gender. And I think that's in a way, a statement that I'm making when I tell this, because we always portray certain gods with gender. But the fact that indigenous communities, most of the indigenous communities do not have a gender when we talk about the higher power.
Interesting, and so very nice to know that.
So my 2012, that was, I did the Sandakpur trek, which is to see the mountain Kanchenjunga. And millet beer was one of the things that keeps you warm right through. And of course, rhododendron wine, which you didn't mention, because
I think
the other
Peter's
thing.
voice is
So
not
the
audible.
rhododendron flower. But the wine used to be made, that is made from that, is also really lovely.
All right,
Okay,
let's move on now, because then we'll all think of getting tipsy. So we have Divya's story to discuss now. Divya talked about the bat and the mouse, right? How the bat only comes out at night, the naughty bat. So Divya, why did you choose this story?
I had this book which had a lot of African folk stories, and I've realized a lot of the folk story talks about friendship and betrayal. And this is something a lot of us can connect with, where you have people who pretend to be your friends, but they don't really want the best for you. So when I say this, I'm sure each of you have some image in your head. So the connectability of this story is something I like. And also the fact that he was innocent and so happy, and the pain of betrayal was far more than the physical pain.
True.
And it stays with you throughout your life, that you are taken for a ride.
True. You kind of hit a nerve, in everybody with that story. So like you said, I'm sure everybody has a story of somebody not living up to that friendship that they shared or they thought they shared. Anybody wants to say anything else? The floor is open. Please contribute. Please share your thoughts because that's what this forum is all about. So, what did you feel about Divya's story?
Hi, this is Amit Agrawal.
Hi, Amit.
Yeah, hi, Shaheen. This is Amit.
Hi.
So,
Hi.
what I felt was that, like I knew that Bat sleeps at night and he hunts. I mean, Bat sleeps in the day and hunts in the day, hunts in the daytime. So I was really astonished, like that. How could this could be connected? Why does the Bat hunts at night and he sleeps in the day? So, like he's trying to be away from the rat. So that's quite enjoyable part of the story which I found.
Yeah. Thank you
You know
so
the way
much.
it got connected. Thank
Right.
you, Shai.
Not at all. Thanks
What
for
was amusing for
contributing.
me today was, hello.
Hello. Yes, yes,
What was
Meena.
amusing for me today is that I've made mushroom soup, but without the white pebble.
And without jumping into the hot water, Meena. Shaheen, I just
For a
want to
moment,
add.
I thought Divya.
Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
Divya, I thought you were giving us a recipe for bat soup.
Please, let's not remind ourselves of that.
Shaheen,
Yes.
I just have, I just have to go because there's someone meeting, but I really wanted to thank all of you for being such good listeners and giving me a platform to tell this story. I hope to come for the next session, but I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much for that
much.
wonderful story and the wonderful visualization.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
nicely
you,
done.
sir. So
Lovely.
bye for now. I will meet you next Saturday or another
Yes.
Saturday.
Right.
Bye.
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 Sunita, you were saying something.
Yeah, actually, with both the stories today, with Minkit's story and Divya's story, it was really about it was a story told using nature and animals, but it's really relevant to us. It's really about us and what we go through, and everything that human beings go through, but put in in how nature has with animals and with rivers. And Minkit's story was beautiful in that sense, that there was a history to how things are
Right.
in nature. And similarly with Divya, as to why are bats like this and why are mice like this. And it's really how we all are. So in a way, there was so much of an interconnection between nature and humans. I enjoyed that very much.
Thank you.
And then Peter's story is interconnected
No.
within himself.
We skipped a story, Elaine. We have one story to discuss before that, Rachna's story. And Rachna, please tell us why you chose this story.
Well, I feel it's very pertinent. The food is in a few people's hands, and everyone is going hungry, especially with what happened with the migrants everywhere. So
True.
kind of it's magnified. Instead of 5 sons and 5 daughter-in-laws, you have 5 million, I don't know, 5 lakh people who went hungry, 50 lakh people who are hungry. And these, obviously the wives and sons are staying with the mother-in-law and the father-in-law, but here we just couldn't feed them. And they did ask us for food, and that's, I think, all they asked us for, 2 square meals a day, and we somehow couldn't manage to give them that. And I guess I think when you are in a position of power, so your heart sometimes is much smaller. It's the poor who have bigger hearts, I feel. So there is less ability, desire to give. That's what I felt, and it just in this time it just kind of seemed very relatable to me.
Thank you so much. So you've given us food for a discussion. And would anybody like to tell us, share what you felt when you heard the story from Rachna? Dalip, you've been quiet for a very long time. Would you like to say something?
No thoughts today. Sorry.
All right, no problem. Yeah. Anybody else? I mean, maybe because she had 5 sons and 5 daughters-in-law and her husband and herself, so that's 12 people. And maybe she felt that if she became frugal, she would be able to extend the crop a bit more. I mean, I'm just trying to be nice to the mother-in-law, but I don't know.
3 meals of cornflour paste every day is a little on the.
I know. I know.
I think it's about coming from a place of generosity. If the place, if
True.
you come from there, then even if you have a little, you are able to give. And if you come from a place of miserliness, it's not necessarily whether you're rich or poor. You just don't have that ability to give. I think it's a
True.
bit of practice.
True.
But that migrant
What
connection.
I was struck by is this realization that how easily things can be taken away from you. The husband telling the wife, you didn't share it, now it's all gone, they've taken it away from us. So this is one of the themes that I see playing out very much during this lockdown and in this ever since the epidemic started. It's how easily you can just lose your petrol, you can lose the ability to move around, you can lose the ability to meet your friends, and it's just all gone. And the lesson and the learning from that for me is to make sure that you do it when you have the time and you have the opportunity, because don't put it off, you may not get another chance.
Thank you, Peter. Amit, could you hear that?
No, it wasn't audible to me. I don't
Okay.
know.
All right.
Maybe some connection problem from my side. If you were able to hear that.
Uh, yes, we were able to hear him.
Shine, today's all the stories have been at a very low level. Low level meaning voice level. I'm sorry. Low, very very low. I had to strain all the time, and Peter's was inaudible and breaking all the time. Couldn't follow at all.
Mm-hmm.
Meena, maybe you should look at the volume setting on your machine as well. And
For once, I did all that.
Okay.
Okay.
Because all the storytellers were very clear. Peter we had some trouble with Peter, but otherwise it was all clear. But Rachna, I do want to tell you that I think the story to me was, it was about, power and people holding on to stuff and things like that. But I think in your connection, making that connection to the migrants just touched a raw nerve. It is so true. I think I think that has been the worst side of humanity that we have seen in this lockdown, and how Elaine spoke about coming from a place of generosity, and I think it showed a mirror to all of us as to how we are as a society.
Absolutely. And to see them walking back miles and for days, 1,000 kilometers, 1,200. I mean, we just need to really do a rethink about a lot of things in life.
Rachna, something that was very interesting to me was how rice can be looked forward to. I mean, if you're having corn flour every day, the idea of having rice, and also, the fact that these women were dancing around in makeup at night, I really wanted to join in, when I was listening to the story, I just wanted to put that makeup.
I've said it to children once, but with children you're more evocative, and I laughed like a really bad witch, so I couldn't do that here today, but I managed to scare them really badly with that. So, it's like how you say it and where, and what kind of platform you have. It's a very nice story. Yeah.
Rachna, you can scream and laugh on this platform too. You haven't seen Divya do it. And she does it beautifully, and we all look forward to it. So please do your thing next time.
Next time, sure, I will.
If you want to, yes. Thank you so much, Elaine, for that encouragement. So let's move on to Peter's story. Peter, I didn't have a problem with your story because I've heard it twice before, but for those who are not able to listen to it, I'm so sorry about that. Um, Anybody wants? Okay, so Peter, why did you tell this story?
One is that Sunita always complains that in all my stories, body parts are coming off, body parts are coming off, somebody's head is coming off. So I thought I'd come up with a story where some body parts start getting attached just to kind of balance out things. So when I came across the story, I was really happy. I said, now I can make amends to Sunita for all the terrible stories that I've been telling. But apart from the jokes, the idea of how a person's behavior begins to change is a very important thing. And coming through this lockdown, there's just suddenly this big catastrophe like this guy has, his accident, and then he goes into a coma. And when he comes out on the other side, things start changing for him so rapidly, like they did for all of us. You find new strengths in yourself. You find places where you thought you were very comfortable suddenly is in a total state of disruption. And all through it, if you can stay calm and appreciate the humor of it, I think there's a great learning for everyone.
And I found it apt in another sense also because there's a lot happening in Palestine right now. There's a lot of um, political disconnect happening there, and so to listen to a story from a Palestinian storyteller or writer was, reminded me back there. Another thing, Peter, was that I listened to a TED talk which said that the heart has memories. So it kind of validates, yes, it kind of validates the story where somebody had a heart transplant and the heart had memories. So now I listen to your story with a lot more respect than I did the first time.
Yeah, I always
I'm sorry, Peter.
silly and like fun story, but each time I tell it, there seems to be another. Hello, what up? Okay.
Yes, now we
Oh
can.
God, I'm having all kinds of problems with the internet connection. Okay now?
Okay. Yes, much better.
Better?
Yeah.
So the last time I told this story, if you'll remember, there was this young guy who was almost in tears because
True.
he was remembering the time a friend of his passed away, and the mother in the hospital had the composure and the kind of presence of mind to say, please let me donate his body parts, to his eyes especially, to somebody who wants them. Instead of just the grieving that comes, she also decided to let somebody else be able to take whatever they had. I mean, he was talking mainly about donating the eyes, and how that whole experience affected him. And he came to me afterwards and kind of said, like, thank you so much. I've been able to, through your story, I've been able to get some kind of peace and been able to relive that experience without feeling so terribly bad about it. So yeah, so that is the part of the story, even though I always thought it was just such a, like a inane story, but yeah, it does have certain levels that are worth engaging with also.
Thank you so much there, Peter. Yes, stories have this power, they have this effect, and we don't know what effect our story would have on somebody else. So as storytellers, we should just go on telling our stories. Does anybody else have something to share before we close for the evening?
Yeah, I looked at Peter's story in a very different way. I'm sorry. It was like, the world is shutting down. I mean, all borders are up. So Abdul represented to me a global citizen. You know, he's getting his body parts from all over the world.
Yes,
And,
yes, yes.
you know, this, like they say, COVID-19 is the last nail in the coffin of globalization. So everybody's shrinking, and this guy is just like, you know, growing on all corners, and you know, there's something very different. So I really loved it. Thank you.
Thank
For
you.
me, it reminded me of the story of the ship of Theseus. So does Abdul remain the same, or has he changed? Because so many parts of this is changed. So is Abdul Abdul, or he is parts of all the whole that, or he is whole of all the parts that he has got now? For me, that was the lasting impression of your story.
Interesting. Right. So it was a lovely evening. We honestly traveled the world. We've had diversity to the truest sense. We've got stories from Africa, Nepal, the Middle East, and India, and we've listened to them. We've had storytellers today, all of us. Only one is from Pune, the others are from outside Pune. So yes, the lockdown has given us some good things also, and let's just enjoy the good things. I'd like to say thank you to all of you for being here. Please be safe, please stay at home, please follow the norms that the government has laid down. So what if this is a big conspiracy, but we do not want to become one among the data, or whatever you call it. Let's just be safe, stay at home, take care of ourselves and our loved ones. Thank you so much for being here. Till we meet again next month, second Saturday, same time, same place. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for
Bye.
being with us. It was wonderful
Pleasure.
having you with
Thank
us.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you,
Bye.
Shani, Peter,
Thank
Divya.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
Divya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye, Elaine.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, bye,
Right,
bye.
man.
Bye.